You have always been enlightened. After reading this, you will admit, everything you believe yourself to be, everything you consider real, is actually an illusion. Not in the sense of conspiracy theories or political narratives, but in a way so profound and absolute that even your doubts are part of this illusion. From the moment you began to think, you were conditioned to believe in separation. You were given a name, an identity, and a story to carry as if they were real. You were told that you are a body, a person, something that exists in time, moving from past to future. But all of this is an illusion. What if I told you that the one reading these words right now is not separate from infinity? That you were never truly lost, never disconnected, never anything other than pure consciousness itself? You don't need to seek enlightenment. You just need to remember what has never been forgotten. But if this is true, why do we seem to forget? Why does the world seem so real, so divided, so concrete? To answer this, we need to go back to the moment you fell asleep within the dream. The first illusion you were taught was that you were separate from the world, from others, from what you considered divine. They gave you a name and said, "This is you." But who decided that? Before language, before thought, before anyone told you who you were, you simply existed. No labels, no boundaries, no divisions, just presence. Over time, however, they convinced you that you were something small, individual, separate from the whole. At first, it was subtle. You learned to identify with your body, your thoughts, your emotions. You were praised for achievements, scolded for mistakes, and taught that you were responsible for them all. Every success became personal. Every failure became personal. And with each new layer of identity, the illusion of separateness deepened. You began to see life through a filter, me and them, right and wrong, before and after. But none of it was real. It was just perception. Perception so deeply ingrained that it became the lens through which you saw the world. But have you ever noticed the moments when that lens breaks? When you are in nature and feel an inexplicable connection to everything? When you are lost in music, completely forgetting yourself? When you look into someone's eyes and, for an instant, see something beyond the person, beyond the name, beyond the story? These moments are glimpses of truth. The mind tries to explain them away. It was just a feeling, an illusion of the brain. But that is the illusion speaking. The greatest lie ever told was not told. It was assumed. The belief that you are separate from your own existence is the basis of suffering. Because when you believe you are separate, you believe you are incomplete. And if you are incomplete, you will always seek something external to complete yourself. Love, success, validation, security. You chase these things as if they will fill the void. But the void was never real. You were never separate. You just believed you were. This is why people suffer. Not because life is cruel, not because the universe is against them, but because they are chasing something they never lost. The moment you believe that you are just the wave and forget that you are also the ocean, you begin to fear the shore. You begin to measure your existence in moments, successes, and failures, instead of recognizing that you are the vast, infinite expanse that contains it all. And this is where the system thrives. A world built on the illusion of separation is easy to control because people who believe they are incomplete are always seeking completeness. They are always looking for answers in religion, in politics, in material success. They are always looking for someone to follow, someone to save them, someone to tell them who they are. But what if no one could? What if the truth was something that no book, institution, or leader could give because it was never missing? Some truths are too deep to be spoken openly. If you want to go beyond the surface, join our free Insights Academy newsletter, where we reveal hidden knowledge they don't want you to know. You'll also receive a free copy of the Kybalion for a limited time. So if the illusion of separation is so fragile, why do we continue to believe in it? The answer is simple: conditioning. From the moment you were born, everything around you has reinforced the lie. But now it's time to break the spell. It's time to see the prison for what It really is. Because when you do, you'll realize you were never truly inside it. The greatest prisons aren't made of walls and chains. They're made of perception. And the most dangerous part? You don't even realize you're inside one. From the moment you opened your eyes as a child, you've been given a version of reality, not as it really is, but as others have agreed it should be. You've been told what things are called, and what is possible, what is impossible. You were given a script before you even knew you were an actor in a play. You were taught that reality is exactly what your senses tell you it is: solid, external, absolute. But think about it. The colors. You see, they are not real. Your brain interprets wavelengths of light and assigns meaning to them. The sounds you hear, they are vibrations translated by your mind into something comprehensible. Even the weather, the thing you base your entire life on, is not something you can touch, hold, or taste outside of perception. If everything you experience is just an interpretation, then what is real? The mind is a mirror, but instead of reflecting reality, it reflects your own conditioning. You don't see the world as it is, you see it as you are. That's why two people can look at the same event and experience it in completely different ways. One sees tragedy, the other sees opportunity. One feels pain, the other feels growth. The event itself is neutral. Only the mind shapes you into something else. But if the mind shapes your reality, what happens when the mind itself is shaped by illusion? Imagine a mirror covered in dust. The dust is your conditioning, your beliefs, your fears, your identity. When you look in the mirror, you think you are seeing yourself, but you are only seeing dust. You mistake the dirt for your own reflection, and that is how perception traps you, making you believe that the conditioned mind is you. But it is not. It never was. Everything you think you are has been shaped by something external. Your language limits what you can express. Your culture dictates what is considered normal or strange. Your educational system teaches you what to think, not how to think. The moment you begin to question your own structure, you become dangerous, because someone who sees beyond the illusion cannot be controlled by it, but the illusion resists. The moment you begin to question it, the mind pushes back. It says, "This can't be true. I know who I am. I know what is real." But do you know? Every belief you have was borrowed. Every idea of who you are was planted in you before you could decide for yourself. So who would you be if none of this had happened? That's why spiritual traditions around the world have something in common: silence, meditation, self-inquiry, stillness. They don't give answers, they remove the noise. Because only when the noise disappears do you realize the truth. The prison was never locked. The door was never closed. You were just too distracted by illusions to see the way out. But escaping isn't as simple as just knowing the truth. Because now the illusion isn't just in your mind, it's in your body, your habits, your daily life. And even when you recognize it, something keeps pulling you back. That something is fear. The fear of losing everything you thought was real. But if none of it was real to begin with, what exactly are you afraid of? Fear. That's what's keeping you here. Not physical chains, not external forces, just fear. The fear of losing your identity, the fear of the unknown, the fear of what happens when the mind no longer has control. This is how the illusion is maintained. Because the moment you consider letting go, the mind steps in and asks, "But then who will I be?" You see, the illusion is not just something you were taught, it is something you now defend. You have been conditioned to fight for it, to protect it, to build your entire existence around it. You believe that you are a name, a personality, a collection of memories. But memories are just thoughts, and thoughts are fleeting. They come and go, and yet you remain. If you were your thoughts, you would cease to exist every time they stopped. But you don't let them. Something remains, something constant, something deeper than the mind. But how did we get here? How did we get so lost in a dream that we forget we were dreaming? The answer is simple: repetition. From the moment you were born, reality has been presented to you in a certain way. They gave you a name, an identity, a nationality, a belief system. They told you what was good and bad, right and wrong. And each time you repeated those beliefs, they became stronger, more real, more a part of you. The more you said, "I am this," the more you believed it, until one day you forgot you were ever something else. Society plays its part perfectly. It rewards those who stay within the illusion and punishes those who step outside it. It tells you that success means accumulation, more money, more status, more validation. It tells you that suffering means failure, that happiness is something you must chase, something external, something always just out of reach. And so you keep running, not realizing that the act of chasing is what keeps you stuck. But the truth is, you were never stuck. The illusion, it only works if you believe in it. A child raised in a cage doesn't try to escape because he doesn't know there's anything outside. He accepts the walls as reality. And that's what happened to you. The walls were built so early, so carefully, that you never thought to question them. But the moment you do, really do, you begin to see the cracks. Think of a time when you felt truly free. Maybe it was in childhood before the weight of the world pressed down on you. Maybe it was a moment under the stars feeling something bigger than yourself. Maybe it was during a deep conversation, losing yourself in the presence of another person. In those moments, something inside you recognized the truth, not as an idea, not as a belief, but as a direct experience. But then the mind pulled you back. It told you it was just a feeling, a passing moment, not real. Because that's the mind's job, to maintain the illusion. The ego, the identity, the sense of self, these are not your enemies. They are survival mechanisms. They exist because, in a world of forms, they help you navigate. But the problem is they don't know when to stop. What was once a tool has become your master, and now you are a prisoner of your own creation. But what happens when you stop believing in the illusion? What happens when you take a step back and realize that every identity you've ever had has been just a story? That's when fear arises. Because if you are not the identity, not the thoughts, not the labels, then what are you? That's the point at which most people give up. The illusion may be painful, but it is familiar. And the unknown is terrifying. But here's the thing. The unknown is only terrifying to the mind, because the mind fears its own dissolution. But what if you are not the mind? What if the thing you fear losing was never you? The mind is noisy, but the truth is silent. That's why you've never found it in books, philosophies, or spiritual teachings. Words can only point to the truth. They can never be the truth itself. You have spent your entire life trying to understand, trying to make sense of existence. But the mind was never meant to comprehend anything beyond itself. And yet here you are, searching, questioning, feeling something just beneath the surface. But here's what no one tells you. You should never find the answer by thinking. Thinking is exactly what keeps you in illusion. It divides, categorizes, creates opposites, self and other, past and future, real and unreal. Thought is a tool, but you have mistaken it for the master. Enlightenment is not about gaining something. It is about losing everything that was ever real. It is about peeling away layers of identity until nothing is left. And when nothing is left, what is left? The one thing that has always been there, consciousness, silent, still, infinite. The same consciousness that is reading these words now. But the mind resists. It will say, "This is absurd. I have a life. I have responsibilities. I have things to do." And yes, in the world of forms, this is true. But you are not just form. You are the space that contains everything. The dreamer, not the dream. And when you realize this, the way you experience life changes forever. So how do you move beyond thought? How do you wake up from the dream? The answer is simple but not easy. Stop identifying with the mind. Observe it. Watch it like you would. Watch the clouds passing by in the sky. A thought arises, and instead of reacting, you notice it. You don't judge it, you don't resist it, you don't believe it. You simply observe. And in that observation, something changes. You begin to see that you are not the thoughts, but the consciousness behind them. You are not the emotions, but the presence in which they arise. You are not even the body, but the space in which it appears. The more you observe, the more you let go. And the more you let go, the more the illusion begins to dissolve. This is why meditation exists. Not to control the mind, not to force peace, but to see clearly. To sit in silence long enough for the illusion to fade and reality to reveal itself. And here's the paradox. When you stop seeking enlightenment, when you stop looking for answers, when you surrender completely, that's when it happens. Because it was never something to be found. It was always something you already were. But make no mistake, the ego will resist. It has spent years reinforcing its existence, and it will not dissolve easily. It will flood you with thoughts, distractions, resistance. It will tell you that this is useless, that nothing has changed. And if you listen, you will fall back into the dream. That's why so few people awaken. Not because the truth is hidden, but because they are so identified with their thoughts that they cannot let go. They fear that without their identity, without their opinions, without their past, they will be nothing. And they are afraid that they will be nothing, but only because they were never anything to begin with. And yet this nothingness is the most profound thing of all, because it is not emptiness, nor is it nothingness. It is pure, unshakable consciousness, the source of all things, the ocean from which each wave rises and dissolves, the space in which everything happens. It is you. It has always been you. So why does the mind resist so much? Why does it fight so hard to maintain its illusion of control? The answer lies buried deep in ancient teachings, hidden in symbols, texts, and esoteric knowledge that most people ignore. And among these teachings, one philosophy holds a key that is both liberating and dangerous: the truth about will. Most people live their entire lives following rules they never agreed to, pursuing desires that were never truly theirs. They follow routines dictated by others, beliefs inherited without question, and expectations imposed by a society that thrives on control. But behind all this is something deeper, a force, an impulse, a knowing that whispers from within. A force so powerful that if you align yourself with it, nothing can stop you. The ancients called it will, and the moment you discover it, you become untouchable. The law of Thelema says, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." At first glance, it seems like an invitation to indulgence, to chaos, to reckless abandon. But that is exactly what those in control want you to believe. They want you to think that true freedom is dangerous, that personal sovereignty is reckless, because the last thing they want is for you to realize the truth. Will is not desire. Will is not impulse. Will is not ego. Your true will is not about doing what you want in the moment. It is not about seeking pleasure or selfish gain. It's about living in complete harmony with the cosmic flow, moving with the current of existence instead of against it. It's the deeper force that has always pulled you toward your purpose, beyond fear, beyond hesitation, beyond conditioning. Imagine a river. The water flows naturally, effortlessly, always moving toward its destination. The river doesn't question itself, doesn't doubt its path. It doesn't try to flow backward or stop out of fear. It simply flows. This is how true will operates. It's not forced, nor is it manufactured. It simply is. But illusion prevents you from seeing it. Society teaches you to conform, to obey, to silence this inner knowing. The system replaces your true will with artificial desires. Money, status, approval, distractions designed to keep you from questioning whether you're meant for something greater. This is why most people feel lost. They're chasing things that were never meant for them, wondering why they feel empty even when they get everything they thought they wanted. Because they're not following your will, they're following someone else's plan. But when you discover your true will, everything changes. You stop hesitating. You stop wasting time on things that don't align with you. You start living with unshakable certainty, not because you know every step, but because you're no longer afraid of where the path leads. When you move with will, obstacles crumble, resistance disappears, and life aligns in ways you never imagined possible. So how do you find it? The answer isn't in logic or in planning. It's in removing everything that isn't yours. Every belief, every expectation, every false desire. Let them go. What's left? What still pulls you forward? Despite the fear, despite the doubt. That's your will. That's your purpose. Aleister Crowley called it thelema, but the idea existed long before him. Every mystic, every enlightened being, every awakened soul spoke of this force in different words. The Taoists called it the way. The Hindus called it dharma. The Buddhists called it right action. It's all the same thing. The movement of the universe expressing itself through you. And the best part, the moment you align with it, you become unstoppable. No external authority can dictate your path. No fear can stop you. You no longer need permission. You no longer need validation. Because when you act from true will, you are not acting as a separate individual. You are acting as the universe itself. That's why thelema is so feared, not because it's dangerous, but because it's liberating. A person who knows their will cannot be manipulated, cannot be controlled, cannot be made to live in fear. They don't look to governments, religions, or social structures to define their purpose. They already know who they are. And that kind of person is a threat to every system built on control. But here's the challenge. Knowing your will is just the beginning. Because when you see through the illusion, so when you recognize the force that has always called to you, you are faced with a choice. Will you follow it, or will you walk away? Because stepping into your will means stepping beyond comfort, beyond security, beyond everything that illusion has convinced you to cling to, and most people, even after glimpsing the truth, walk away. But what happens when you don't walk away? What happens when you choose to step into your power to embody that force fully? That's when true transformation begins. That's when you stop seeking and start becoming. Because enlightenment was never about knowing. It was about doing. It was about living the truth that you now see. And that's where most people fail. Because the final step of awakening is the hardest, bringing that realization into the world, living it every day in everything you do. But those who do, they change everything. So how do you live as an awakened being in a world that thrives on illusion? The answer is simpler than you think, but it demands everything from you. The moment you wake up, the world doesn't change. You change. Everything around you remains the same. The people, the routines, the distractions, the illusions. They're still there, unfolding as they always have. But now you see them for what they are. The veil has been lifted and you're no longer fooled. The question is, what do you do now? For most, awakening is a moment, not a transformation. They glimpse the truth, feel the weight of realization, and slowly slip back into their old patterns. The illusion welcomes them with open arms, ready to lull them back into their former selves. And so they continue as before, carrying the knowledge of something greater, but never truly embodying it. That's the ultimate tragedy. Seeing the way out and choosing to stay in the cage. But for those who refuse to let go, for those who move beyond knowing and into being, life becomes something completely different. Because awakening is not an event, it's a practice, a way of moving through the world, a way of existing that is entirely different from the one you have been conditioned to accept. Living as an awakened being does not mean withdrawing from life. It does not mean renouncing the world, abandoning responsibilities, or pretending that nothing matters. Rather, it means engaging with life fully, but without attachment, without illusion, without a false sense of self dictating your every move. It means moving with full presence, seeing things as they are, and acting from a place of clarity, not fear. The first thing you will notice is that fear begins to lose its power over you. The worries that once consumed you, what others think, what the future holds, whether you are enough, begin to fade away. Not because life becomes easier, but because you no longer identify with the part of you that holds on to fear. You begin to see fear as just another thought, another passing cloud in the sky of consciousness. And when you see fear for what it is, it loses its hold on you. The second thing that happens is that you stop chasing. The endless search for meaning, for validation, for success, it no longer controls you. Because you realize that you were never lacking anything. You were never incomplete. You are not here to become something greater. You are here to recognize that you already are. But the most profound change of all is in how you move through life. When you no longer act out of fear, when you no longer seek external validation, when you are no longer attached to illusion, you move differently. You begin to live in alignment with your true will, not because you are forcing something, but because there is no longer any resistance. The flow of existence moves through you effortlessly, and you find yourself exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you are meant to do. People will notice. Some will be drawn to you, sensing something unshakable about you. Others will resist, feeling unsettled by something they cannot define. Because when you stop playing by the rules of illusion, you disrupt the whole game. The world around you expects conformity, predictability, and obedience, but you no longer fit into those expectations. You are something different now, something else. But living like this brings a challenge. Because once you see through the illusion, you can no longer unsee it. You will walk into a world where people are still trapped in falsehoods, still clinging to identities that aren't real, still suffering for things that don't exist, and you will want to wake them up. You will want to shake them, tell them what you now know, pull them out of the dream. But you can't, because awakening is not something you can force on others. Just as no one could have forced you to see before you were ready, you can't force anyone else. You can only be an example. You can only embody the truth, live it fully, and let those who are ready find their own way. That is the greatest act of service, not to preach, not to convince, but simply to be. And as you walk this path, one truth will become undeniable. The world is not happening to you, it is happening through you. You are not in life. Life is in you. You are not separate from existence, you are existence itself. And when you finally live from this understanding, you realize something incredible. The struggle was never real. The search was never necessary. The fear was never yours to begin with. Most people will never get to this point. They will remain trapped, believing they are just a person, just a name, just a body moving through time. They will remain locked in the illusion because it is familiar, because it is safe, because waking up requires losing everything they thought they were. But you are different, because you have come this far. You are listening. You are remembering. And now there is only one thing to do: live it. Because knowing the truth is meaningless if you do not embody it. Seeing the illusion is pointless if you still play by its rules. Awakening is not about what you know, it's about what you do with it. And the question is, will you take that final step? Will you stop thinking about it and start living it? Because this is where everything changes, not in theory, not in understanding, but in action. But whether you take that step or not, one thing is certain: you can never go back. You can never unsee the truth. The only question is what you will do with it.